feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Let your feet don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Oh, coffee, steam, and a smile breaks free. Simple joys are enough for me. Stones roll out, but I don't mind. Sun's still waiting on the other side. Turn it up, feel the sound. Good vibrations all around. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Wake up, sunlight tapping on the door. Feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey now, blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day.
Woohoo! Hey, good morning. My mic was turned down. Good morning. I so do appreciate you being here. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. I so do appreciate when you share the program, share it out on X, through social every time. Hopefully Trump takes notice. I love doing what I do every single morning. It's a blast here, 6 a.m. around 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. every morning, Central Time. We've got so much to get to, so if it's all right by you, I'm just going to jump right in. There was this deadly crash in Indiana. I'm sure you've heard of it. But I want to talk about chameleon carriers, because this is a scam. And what they're doing, they're putting illegal, unvetted drivers who don't speak English behind the wheel of big rigs here in America. And this is a national security issue. And I'm really getting kind of sick and tired of Sean Duffy saying he's going to do something about this, but nothing ever really seems to get done. They need to just overhaul how they set up these companies, and how these companies, like, they need to take a look at their regulations and enforce the regulations that are on the books and the processes that are on the books. They need to enforce it. The Federal Motor Vehicle Security, like, they need to get it together and soon. So we're going to be talking about this deadly crash in Indiana, but I also want to talk about your favorite Somalian. She's radical. She's a leftist. Can you guess which congressman has now called for the execution of the president of the United States? Think of that for a second. You have a sitting congresswoman who is calling for the execution of the sitting president of the United States. I'll let you judge what you think her ex post is all about, and if she's actually calling for his execution. I think it's pretty damn clear that she is. And what I'll be also talking about, and this is developing just as I was getting on here, there's just more and more details about the Nancy Gutherie case. There's been a person detained. He's been released already within just like a few hours. He was detained. He was pulled over in a traffic stop. Carlos is his name. But he's just a person of interest. A lot of people are reporting that he's the suspect in this case. I think at this point, I feel comfortable saying he's a person of interest. He was interviewed by the FBI, brought in for questioning. Then he's been released, and he says that he's innocent. But in the last couple of days, there's been quite a few developments with this case. And I don't know, the mainstream media really, I didn't even really talk about this. Why? Because it's not really in my wheelhouse, my sphere of news gathering, because I don't consume mainstream media. So mainstream media has been reporting on this for like several weeks, and I didn't even really know until like late last week, where I was like, oh, I guess this is a thing where Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Savannah Guthrie, was kidnapped. I don't know. There's former FBI officials who are saying that it's looking less and less like a kidnapping. That's not me saying that. That's former FBI officials. The guy that they detained and released, I don't think he really looks like the guy in the video. The width of the guy is a little different. The height of the guy might be a little bit different in the video that the FBI released. It's odd that the FBI released this video. They said that it couldn't be recovered, and then all of a sudden it could be recovered. It was like Nest Ring, sort of like a doorbell camera. And we didn't have that in the beginning of this case. Now we do, and Kash Patel released it. I don't know. This case is just getting odd. And it's been covered by the mainstream media for weeks. Not that I'm not praying for Nancy Guthrie. If she was kidnapped, I pray that she's unharmed and that she returns to her family. I don't know if a lot of these kidnapping type things with the ransom stuff set up by a family member. Just statistically speaking, it's usually set up by a family member. It's very odd that you would have a random guy come in and kidnap. Now, because of her status, Nancy Guthrie, she's the mother of Savannah Guthrie, but Savannah Guthrie isn't even all that famous. I didn't know who either of these people were, Nancy Guthrie or Savannah Guthrie, until this case. I'm going to be honest with you, because I don't watch the Today Show or whatever their Savannah Guthrie's on. A lot of people, I guess, know them because they watch mainstream media. Like I said, I've never really watched mainstream media my entire adult life. I kind of grew up in this era where we don't watch Fox News. My generation, we just kind of get our news off X. And alternative sites. We don't subscribe to, even Fox News or ABC. I think that's what Savannah's, I don't know. But this case is getting interesting. And I'm going to tell you everything that we know and the details of this case, because it's getting blurry. People are saying he's a suspect. People are saying he's an illegal alien. Hold your horses. The guy's not even really a suspect. I don't think they think he's a person of interest. They interviewed him. He was out door dashing. Now tell me this, if he was out door dashing, I don't know, maybe he lied and said that he was door dashing, but his mother-in-law also said he was door dashing, and the guy's broke. So that would kind of make sense that, hey, I took Nancy for ransom, but he's out door dashing. I feel like that's pretty verifiable. Was he clocked in at the time? You kind of get to set your own hours. Why would a guy be door dashing if he's thinking he's going to get millions in ransom money? I don't know. So guy's just a person of interest. He's been released. He says he's innocent. I also want to talk about Illinois conversion therapy. Okay, so conversion therapy has been outlawed since 2016. Here in the state of Illinois, they put a ban on it. Conversion therapy. I hate that word because it's like, oh, conversion therapy. It's so spooky. Really, what this looks like in practice is a preacher sitting down with a confused child saying, hey, God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And that's usually how conversion therapy goes. And then the kids are like, oh, I just kind of like the color pink sometimes, or, oh, I'm just, sort of into boy sports rather than girl sports. And I'm a tom girl or tomboy, or, I'm just a sensitive boy, and then they kind of grow out of it. That's kind of what conversion therapy is. Okay. That it's just an individual talking with a child who might seem a little confused. They're growing up, they're getting into puberty. And the state is now saying that they're not going to pay for conversion therapy, although it's banned here in the state of Illinois. So, like, why would you come out and say, like, oh, we're introducing a bill so we don't, put taxpayer dollars towards conversion therapy? Okay, obviously you don't, because it's already banned in the state, but you are going to keep funding the transitioning of children under the guise of gender affirming care. Now, that is actual conversion. I don't know about you, but that's the ultimate conversion therapy, being that, kids, they go into the doctor's office and then they come out a totally different individual with non-reversible puberty blockers, irreversible surgeries, their breasts are lopped off. Like, I don't know about you, but that sounds more like conversion to me than just telling little Timmy or Tammy, hey, you like the color pink a little bit and you're a boy, but that doesn't mean you're a girl. You're a girl who likes to skateboard and wear, baseball caps. It doesn't mean that you're a boy. That just means, you're a tomboy, and you like boy things. It doesn't mean that you're, this gender and that you have to lop your healthy breast off. Okay. So to me, that's not really conversion therapy. That's just chatting with children and telling them the realities of life. And the other one definitely sounds more like a conversion therapy, because the kids are permanently altered physically, mentally, and emotionally for the rest of their lives. So we're gonna pay for one. The bill that I talk about here in Illinois, they carve this out specifically in the bill. They say we're going to ban taxpayer funds being used for conversion therapy. However, that doesn't extend to gender affirming care. Gender affirming care is not conversion therapy. And they're very explicit about this in the bill. I find it hilarious that they have to, like, hey, we're banning your conversion therapy, not our conversion therapy, is essentially the way the bill reads. So we're going to get to all of it. Smash that like button. Why does the abduction dominate news? Thousands go missing every year. Yeah, maybe another distraction from the fraud. Yeah, the downfall of Tim Walz, the Somalian fraud going on in Minnesota. There's so much that the mainstream could be covering right now, but they're covering this abduction. I don't know, kidnapping. Statistically speaking, things like this, ransom notes, it's somebody in the family. I don't know what's going on with the story. Just seems to be dominating. Now it's reached into my alternative news site, so now I've got to talk about it. But it seems to be dominating the mainstream media cycle for weeks now, like 2 weeks. And not to, be, pessimistic or mean to the Guthrie family. I don't really care either. Like, I'm not anti-Guthrie, okay, because they're mainstream media people. So I'm not anti-Savannah Guthrie, although I'm sure they've got major cases of TDS. I don't know that for sure, but I'd be willing to guess that they've got major cases of TDS, and they're not fans of Donald Trump or people like me, conservatives, because they're in the mainstream world. But I mean, not a lot of people, like, I don't know, maybe I live in this totally alternate reality or alternate world. But I did not know who Savannah Guthrie was. Like, people my age definitely don't know Savannah Guthrie or Nancy Gutherie. And I don't even think that, like, people who are apolitical who are my age wouldn't know these people either. They're on the Today Show. Like, they're not household names. Okay. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but for somebody to be dominating the news cycle for several weeks and they're not household names, like Rob Reiner, kind of a household name, more popular. His death dominated the news cycle about a week, but he was a household name. But they moved on pretty quickly, the mainstream media. I think after like a few days, they stopped talking about Rob Reiner's death, Rob and his wife being killed by their son. Okay, so this is like a kidnapping, an abduction. And as this user points out, BKR7130, you guys can comment, thousands go missing every year. It's kind of rare where somebody dies at the hands of their child and their throats are slit. You would think that would dominate the news cycle for a much longer period of time. So anything that dominates the news cycle, I'm curious if it's a psyop, fake news, if it's, in the media cycle for a long period of time to distract us from something else. So yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to Nancy Guthrie. I do want to get to the semi-truck first. So there was a deadly semi-truck crash in Indiana, and I wanted to bring it up today. It happened last week, but I wanted to bring it up today because I think that this case specifically shines a light on this shadowy network of trucking companies. And I've been talking about this a while on the program, that we need to address this. And this is a matter of national security. And Sean Duffy, the Trump administration, really needs to take this stuff seriously. And they need a complete overhaul of how they enforce federal regulations when it comes to becoming a trucking company. So this case really exposes the shadowy network of trucking companies. And these shadowy network of trucking companies, what they do best is they put illegal aliens, unqualified foreign nationals, many of whom don't speak English, behind the wheels of these big rigs, and they just go across America every day. Okay, and this is our supply chain. We're talking about, like, getting products and goods across the state, or across the United States. This is a big deal. Who we're putting behind these big rigs. So this guy, his name is Begjan Bishkiv. Say that 10 times fast. He is responsible for a crash that happened February 3rd, and it killed 4 people. These 4 people were part of a local Amish community in Indiana. They were in a van and they were hit head on by Bishkiv. 3 of the 4 victims were all from one family. So very tragic. Bishkiv was taken into custody by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, but apparently there are many more drivers like Bishkiv. Okay, still out on the road. Still out on the roads of America right now. I don't know about you, but when I'm driving down the road and I see a semi, I look, I know this is going to be awful. Maybe it's racist, but I look to see if the guy's wearing a turban. And if he is, I just kind of stay in my lane and I don't try to, I try to get out away from that. I'm sorry. Maybe that's racist of me, but these chameleon carrier companies are hiring people like Bishkiv. And in a way, these illegal aliens are desperate. I don't want to call them victims because they're here illegally. They're criminals and they need to be deported. But they're desperate. And these chameleon carrier companies, and I'm going to describe what a chameleon carrier company is. They are preying on illegal aliens, because they're so desperate and because they're willing to do illegal things for money. And they don't want to go back home. So these chameleon carriers, they are a part of a sort of new trucking business model. Okay. And they have sprung up, particularly in high concentrated urban areas, very populous urban areas. And they prey on illegal aliens, these chameleon carrier trucking companies, and they hire them. And these networks of carriers work together to swap business names. So it's a network, and they're all kind of working together. And they swap business names and Department of Transportation numbers. So every truck has a number, and it's associated with the Department of Transportation. They swap numbers, they swap business names, and they keep illegals on the roads, and they avoid enforcement by doing this chameleon carrier model. And I'm going to explain step by step how they do this, but Department of Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has vowed to use the full force of the federal government to get to the bottom of these deadly scams. And they've operated under the radar for years. It's semi-new, but it's been years kind of in the making here. They've gotten more sophisticated, and now it's like a network where they're all kind of helping each other out, and they're swapping LLCs and business names. And the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration will be working around the clock. This is what Sean Duffy says, to expose and hold accountable the chameleon carrier company involved in this Indiana crash. I want you to take a listen here. Holy smokes. The employers of this illegal alien semi-truck driver who killed 4 Amish men in Indiana, the employers are fraudulent. Okay. And the Trump administration is now investigating. And Sean Duffy says, hey, we're going to use the full force of the Federal Motor Safety Administration, and we're going to be working around the clock to expose these chameleon carrier companies like this one. So, like I said, these carrier companies, they swap DOT numbers. Their Department of Transportation, every truck has a DOT number, but they swap those once they get in trouble or they change their business name. And I'll tell you how exactly the scam goes. But take a listen to this. This is reporting on the Indiana crash.
Another illegal immigrant truck driver accused in a deadly crash in Indiana. It killed 4 people. The driver reportedly entered the United States under President Biden using the CBP One app and released on parole. Senior correspondent Mike Tobin has this tragic story. Hi, Mike.
And sadly, Dana, it's another case of someone who entered the U.S. under Biden administration policies, went to a sanctuary state, got a license to get behind a big rig, and now someone is hurt or killed. It happened in Indiana on Tuesday. One truck on State Road 67 slowed down. The truck behind him did not, instead swerved into oncoming traffic. The truck hit a van transporting 4 men from Indiana's Amish community. The 4 men were killed. The driver of that van is now in critical condition. Indiana State Police report the driver of the semi-truck is 30-year-old Bezkan Beshiki from Kazakhstan. He entered the U.S. using the Biden administration CBP One cell phone app, and that was in December of 23. Bishakiev was issued a commercial driver's license by the state of Pennsylvania. Now, the issue of undocumented people behind the wheel of big rigs is painful for Marcus Coleman. In June of 2024, his 5-year-old daughter was critically injured by a driver from India who entered the U.S. illegally and got a commercial driver's license when he was still a teenager. Dahlia will spend the rest of her life in need of medical care.
She's not going to make a full recovery. She's going to be on therapies for the rest of her life. She's going to be on medication the rest of her life. And we've pretty much come to the terms that she's not going to be self-sufficient. She's going to basically have to have a guardian and pretty much a chaperone and caretaker with her pretty much everywhere she goes.
Now, related to the Indiana crash and the driver who got a CDL in Pennsylvania, Governor Josh Shapiro issued a statement to Fox News saying Bezkan Beshakiev had legal status when he got his license and is still legal on the database. Quote, Kristi Noem should focus on minding shop in her own agency as her incompetence and operational failures seem to be matching the scale of her moral failures. Now, with the Indiana case, the Hoosier State cooperates with ICE. The driver was handed over in the jail. Bishakiv is now in federal custody. Dana?
Okay, Mike Tobin, thank you.
Hey, everyone.
Okay, so they need to get serious about this because this has been going on. If there's 2-3 more crashes, I'm going to start to get upset with Sean Duffy and the Trump administration because this should be priority number 2, 3. Because this also deals with national security. This is our supply chain we're talking about, and we can't have our supply chain in the hands of these interconnected carriers that have all the markings of fraud. They are accused of being chameleon carriers. And essentially what a chameleon carrier is, they swap names, company names, DOT numbers to avoid law enforcement and regulation. So here's what Sean Duffy said. He said, our team is also on the ground investigating the driver entry training school. Okay, so there's a driver school. It's called Adana CDL. And what this training school is doing, they are helping people like this Indiana driver, the unvetted, the unqualified, the illegals, get behind the wheel in the first place. So there's these pop-up training schools that are in cahoots. They're sham schools. They're in cahoots with this network of chameleon carriers. And they help illegal aliens get their licenses, their CDL, and they should be called into question. The chameleon carriers should be shut down. There needs to be an overhaul of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration process in order to become a trucking company. But Sean Duffy says they're working around the clock to hold everybody involved in this horrific crime accountable. Okay, so setting up a chameleon carrier trucking company is actually very simple. Like a baboon could do it. Joe Biden could do it. Okay, bun brain. So you really want to start in a metropolitan area, and this is how they do it. They start in a metropolitan area, a dense area that is rich with illegal immigrant manpower. Okay, because that's the key to this thing. You have to find desperate employees who are willing to commit these illegal acts, and illegal aliens are willing to commit these illegal acts because they can't get jobs anywhere else. They have to resort to illegal activity. So they prey on these illegal aliens in these dense urban areas, and these urban areas tend to have leasing companies, truck leasing companies like Penske. Okay, so they don't even buy the trucks. They don't even have to buy the trucks. These illegals, these foreigners, they come here and they start setting up these trucking companies, not even buying their own trucks, but they're leasing trucks through companies like Penske. Okay, so then here's what you do. You go to the metropolitan area, dense with illegal alien manpower. They've got truck leasing companies. Then you file with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Okay. Then you file with FMCSA. Okay. There's an application. It's called an OP1 application. Okay. All this application is really just like basic, like, hey, what's your trucking company's name? What's your LLC? What truck company are you leasing from? How many trucks are in your fleet? Very basic. And then you pay a $300 filing fee. Okay. So it's very easy to become a trucking company. You just fill out this OP1 application, and they're really like FMCSA is really the federal government is really relying on honesty here. And this needs to be overhauled. There needs to be, hey, before we process your application, we have to see you in person and see your company in person. And like, there has to be an in-person element to this. Okay. But there's not. And that's why this is happening. The process sucks. So you pay a $300 filing fee, you file with the Federal Motor Administration. And then from there, all you have to do is obtain a process agent. This is a BOC3 form, is what they call it. So basically, it's like, hey, if we do something, on the road, if we get into a crash, and you want to sue us, like, this is our process agent on file. So as long as they have a BOC3, they're considered legitimate. As long as they filed their OP1 application, they're considered legitimate. And then they, do proof of insurance. And they wait approximately like 3 weeks. And then boom, you're a trucking company. You just need 3 things to become a trucking company. And getting these 3 things is very easy. The OP1 application, all done online. You pay the $300 fee. And then the BOC3 is a little bit more complicated. We'll get into more of what that is. The process agent. But there's non-legitimate process agents out there who will say, like, yes, in the case that this trucking company A gets into a crash and there's a lawsuit filed, we're the ones, who are their agent and will take care of the legal things. But there's, non-legitimate process agents out there. And we'll get to that here in just a second. But reportedly, it takes about 18 months. So like that whole thing, after you get your application in, your process agent in through your BOC3 form, and then you submit your proof of insurance. After you get all that in, you're waiting about 3 weeks, and then boom, you're a trucking company, and you're a legal trucking company. Okay. So after that, that's when the federal government starts to do their audits, which is just so stupid. You should submit all 3 of those, the application, process agent, and then the insurance. And then the federal government should be taking that 3 weeks, and then they should be auditing you and making sure you're a legitimate company. But no, they don't do that. They just process all of that and then make you a trucking company. And then after the fact, they take about 18 months and they perform audits of the new trucking company. And it takes about 18 months, okay, for them to audit the trucking company and make sure they're a legitimate company. Now, in the meantime, they do have something called the Archie program. So this is an application review and chameleon identification. And really what it's supposed to do, it's a screening process. They take all 3 of those criteria, they run it through a screening, and they try to see if the applicants, their data, and they try to match that data with existing carriers. And they're looking for like shared addresses, phone numbers, officer names, email addresses, VIN numbers. And that's what Archie is supposed to do. Yeah, obviously, it's not working. Okay. The Archie system to catch these chameleons in the 18th month period where the federal government is supposed to be conducting an audit of these trucking companies. So it's not catching it, obviously. And, bad actors, what they're doing, they know the math. If they register or if they register multiple authorities, like burner phones, okay, use them until they accumulate too many violations and get shut down. They shut one down, they're going to just activate another company. Okay, because the process is so easy. So say Archie even identifies them and says, hey, you're a chameleon carrier. Okay. They'll just say, okay, whatever. And then they'll open up another new company. They can use the same leasing truck leasing companies like Penske use the same drivers. They just change their application a little bit. And then they try to go through and get forced through the Archie program, and they can commit all kinds of violations. And then the federal government can be like, hey, you've committed this violation where you're not tracking your hours or logging your hours correctly on the road, because there's federal regulations when it comes to truck drivers logging their hours on the road through an electronic device. And, you can violate those federal regulations if the feds say, hey, you violated this, they'd be like, and you violated it too many times, we're shutting down your company. They'd be like, okay. And then they just pop up another company for $300 and they activate the next one. So the equipment, the drivers, the dispatch operation, the back office, none of it really changes. The name on the door changes. It's a scam. It's a scam that illegal immigrants are doing. It's similar to the Minnesota scam, right? It's fascinating. All of these illegal immigrants just know how to scam. So the BOC3, these are process agents. In simple terms, it's a legal document filed with the feds, filed with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and it tells the federal government, hey, this is the person who can accept lawsuits and legal paperwork on behalf of the trucking company. Okay, so that's what a BOC3 is. And why does the government require it? If a trucking company says, say, gets in an accident in Indiana, that company, is, but that company is based in, like, say, Illinois, the injured party needs a local legal representative that they can serve papers to. Okay, so that's a process agent. They need a process agent that can operate in all 50 states and be a representative in all 50 states. So the rule is every interstate trucking company must have one process agent in each state. That's how the rule goes. But, and like, you have to list this process agent formally on a BOC3 filing. Okay, that's part of this becoming a trucking company. And you file that electronically with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. And all it does is, like, this paperwork, all it really costs you is like $25. Okay, to file the paperwork and to get a BOC3 in all 50 states. It costs you anywhere between $25 to $75. So for a grand total of $375, you can become a trucking company. And you will become a trucking company in 3 weeks. There's no audit. That audit that the Federal Carrier Safety Administration performs takes 18 months. But in that time period, that's your bread and butter right there if you're a fraudulent company. So they don't verify whether this company is legitimate at that stage. Okay, the processing agents, they don't verify anything. The processing agents, the OP1 application is just basic information. And then you can also get insurance, from pretty much anybody. And I'll get to that. But the chameleon carrier is not one company. It's a rotating shell. And you can rack up all kinds of violations under one company name. And then all of a sudden, for the tune of $375, you can get a new company name. And it's just a rotating shell of companies. So think of it like this: same truck, same driver, same dispatch, same office, same owners, same insurance brokers, same leasing companies, but new company name, new DOT number, new operating authority. When the violations start to pile up, the old shell is dropped and the new one is activated. Or if you're deemed illegitimate through the Archie program, or if you're deemed a chameleon carrier, they say, okay, whatever. And then they just create a new trucking company for $375. And like, it takes them 3 weeks to get back out on the road. And then it takes the feds 18 months to audit them. And they're definitely getting through the Archie system. The Archie system is failing. So here's a step-by-step. Let me make this clear and how this works. You set up a paper company. You almost need nothing, like an LLC, often registered online, a mailing address. That could be a virtual office. It could be an apartment, an office. You just need a mailing address, an LLC registered online, a phone number, and an email. Okay. There's no, at that point, step number 1, no trucks even required. Step 2, you apply for PHMSA. So you file your OP1 application, you pay the $300. You basically self-report basic info. There's no deep verification. And at this point, they are relying heavily on people's honesty. Okay. So you get the OP1 application in step 3, file that BOC3, and then you hire a filing service. So a BOC3 filing service, and they assign process agents nationwide. And the BOC filing services are fraudulent too. There's no oversight over these filing services, and within days, up to 3 weeks, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration will accept your application, your BOC3s, and boom, you are legal. Okay, established without ever having to physically be there, and show who you are. And then you file your proof of insurance. This is another soft spot because insurance brokers will write policies for pretty much anyone because they're getting money, right? They don't fully vet safety. There's no full safety vetting. You can use leased equipment and obtain insurance. You can get insurance with minimal operational history. And once the insurance is on file, the authority, the trucking company, becomes active. And like I said, the federal government, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, they don't perform the audit before they accept the carrier as legitimate. They perform the audit after they accept the application and say, hey, yes, you're a legal trucking company. And that takes 12 to 18 months, over a year. And, this is 12 to 18 months. This is their bread and butter. This is where chameleon carriers thrive. And that Archie system, the application review and chameleon identification system, is supposed to stop all this, but it fails, obviously. It's a screening program that's supposed to look for shared addresses, phone numbers, same officers, same VIN numbers, same emails, bad actors. They get around the Archie system by slightly altering their LLC names. They use burner emails. They swap DOT numbers. They use different EINs, employer identification numbers. And this is how they do it, the scam. And it's termed chameleon because it fits perfectly. And here's the key here, is that this model doesn't work unless you have desperate labor, low wages, bottom of the barrel type people who fear reporting it because their immigration status. There's language barriers. Okay. The drivers, they don't complain. They don't question the safety. They don't report violations because they probably don't even really understand the boss that's facilitating the chameleon carrier company. There's that language barrier there. They're unqualified, non-English speaking drivers behind. And this is how they wind up behind the wheels, because they're being kind of exploited here because they won't tell what they're doing. They're racking up violations. They're not following regulations, because if you follow the regulations, you can't make as much money. It's all a money thing. The chameleon carriers, they make so much money in this 12 to 18 month period. They might get shut down after the audit finds them to be illegitimate, and they've racked up too many violations, and then they get shut down, but then they just pop back up for $375. And they can continue operating unregulated. There's a lot of regulations you're supposed to follow while on the roads. Obviously, this is our supply chain we're talking about. This is a very serious job. It's 80,000 pound rigs behind these, vehicles. We should have the best and the brightest. But the key to success for these chameleon carriers is to get cheap labor, illegal labor. They prey on illegals. They're desperate, that are desperate for money. and they get cheap truck leases, and they don't follow any oversight. They can keep the illegals out on the roads for 24 hours. Like I said, there's like an electronic device that you're supposed to only be on the road for a certain amount of hours before pulling over. They don't follow any of that, so they can get as much output as possible. And growth is really easy when you're not following the rules. Okay. And it becomes a numbers game. And it's not a matter of if fatal accidents are going to happen. It's a matter of when. Because if you're not following these regulations that are supposed to keep the truckers and other drivers on the road safe, if you're not following the rules, I mean, a fatal accident will happen. And unmasking these networks is, I don't know why it's so hard just to perform the audit before you approve the carrier. Perform the audit. I don't know why it would take 18 to 12 months to try to prove legitimacy. Some of the stuff you should have to do in person. Not just an online process, but unmasking and dismantling these networks of chameleon carriers is just one step in seeking justice for those killed in this deadly con game. It's a con. It's a scam. And I don't know if these chameleon carriers are run by foreign adversaries or what, but it's a con game, and we have to do our best. State of Illinois, state of California, New York, we have to do our best in preventing illegal aliens. We could stop this all by preventing illegal aliens from getting CDLs, okay, or licenses, period. The Department of Homeland Security blasted Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro for allowing Begjan Bishkev to get a CDL, and it put him on the road. What we need to do is say, hey, I don't care if you came via the CBP1 app. I don't care if you're temporary status. We don't accept legal or illegal. That's what we need to do. Legal or illegal immigrants to get a CDL. We need English-speaking Americans, naturalized citizens, people who are actually citizens behind the wheels of these vehicles. That should just definitely be like a criteria for being a driver on the road behind an 80,000-pound big rig. And this should be priority number 2 or 3 for the Trump administration, because just like in Minnesota, and we're going to get to Ilhan Omar here in just a second. Priority number 1, get the Somalians out of here. They're stealing taxpayer dollars. They're scamming taxpayers in Minnesota to the tune of $9 billion plus. I've seen, that this has gone on since 2016, so 10 years. I've seen the figure, $100 billion in scamming the taxpayer over the last decade. There in Minnesota, they're opening up these fake daycares, and they're submitting applications for grants through the government, and then Minnesota is just giving away taxpayer dollars. That needs to be shut down. They need to be shipped out. I don't care if you're here legally, if you're a Somali immigrant who's been naturalized, even if you've been a citizen and deemed like, hey, you're here forever, that needs to be revoked, and you need to be deported if you're committing fraud in this country like that. And that's what these foreigners are doing. They're coming over here, and they've gamed the system. They've realized, it only cost me $370 to open up a trucking company, and I can skirt all the rules, make as much money as possible, and violate all the regulations, and I don't have to abide by the rules of the road. I don't have to, hire qualified people. I can work them to the bone, and get as much output as possible and make a ton of money in this trucking company. And if the government finds out I did all this and violated this rule, that rule, so what? it'll just cost me another $300 and I'll create a new company and do the same thing over and over again. So priority number 2 or 3, I would say, is the chameleon trucking companies, because these are also people who deal with our supply chain. You don't want our supply chain, our goods and services that we rely, or our goods that we rely on, products that we rely on across the United States. You don't want that in the hands of these questionable bad actors, these terrible people, these scammers. You don't want our supply chain in their hands. That's an issue of national security for sure. All right, let's get to Ilhan Omar. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Very important stuff. That stuff's very important, and I know that that was lengthy, and I went through the process of how to become a chameleon carrier, but I think that that's going to help you understand just how lazy government is. That's my point. They're freaking lazy. 12 to 18 months, and this process just freaking sucks. Like, what do you mean they're approved and you didn't even verify the person's identity in person? Like, none of this process is done in person, and you can just create a trucking company with $300. That's about it. Anybody can create a trucking company for $300, and all you have to do is lease the vehicles, lease the trucks, and you can hire a bunch of illegal immigrants, and nobody's gonna stop you. All right, Ilhan. She's not known for her subtlety. She is known for her anti-American rhetoric, her far-left ideology, and her questionable financial practices. Those are well known. She's not known for her subtlety. So yesterday, her inflammatory comments have taken on a brand new, have gone to a brand new level. And I think she actually said here that, or implied, and I don't know, you be the judge, I think she called for Donald Trump to be executed, that he deserves the ultimate punishment. Here's what she tweeted out on X. Quote, "The leader of the pedophile protection party is trying to deflect attention from his name being all over the Epstein files. At least in Somalia, they execute pedophiles, not elect them." Go back to Somalia then. I don't know what to say. Go back. You don't like it here? You don't like our president? You don't like that we elected this guy? Go back to Somalia. So she said that on X. You guys be the judge. Throw it in the comment section. Was she calling for Donald Trump's execution here? I think so. So they do a lot of things in Somalia, Ilhan. These are practices that we don't want in the United States. So one of the practices in Somalia is marrying your brother and marrying your family. 60% of marriages are incestual, which means that you're like marrying your family members, people who are your blood. That is a common practice there in Somalia, which has led, obviously, to the inbred IQ of like an average of 65 or something like that. For reference, here in the United States, the average IQ is like 98, I think 97, something like that. So, yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to bring Somalia practices over here. I also need to point out that rape and sexual assault in Somalia is it's a problem. It's an endemic. This has troubled the East African country for quite some time. And apparently, she's more concerned about Trump being named in the Epstein files. And I'll get to that here in just a second. But she thinks that it's more important to call out President Donald Trump for being named in these Epstein files. Okay, not implicated, but named. Most recent numbers I pulled this morning, 80% rise in rape and sexual assault in Somalia. Don't lecture us on what we've got going here. I know it's bad in the United States, the human trafficking, the sexual assault, rape, not nearly as bad as what goes on in Somalia. Okay. Why? Because in Somalia, they don't even really see it as rape or sexual assault. The Al-Shabaab terrorist group, they are Islamist terrorists, and it's a militant group, and they use sexual violence and forced marriages to dominate areas in Somalia, and they don't see it as rape or sexual assault. They Islamist militants see this as, hey, we're owed this. Okay, we're owed women in this country. Women have no rights in that country. So from 2019 to 2020, there was an 80% rise in rape and sexual assault. Like I said, Al-Shabaab has a lot to do with that. There was a report done by the United Nations. Okay, so not Conservative Cat, but the United Nations, that found that the rise can be contributed or attributed to the Islamist militant group, where they've taken over areas in Somalia under their control, and they keep their control by raping the women and being sexually violent and forcing young girls into marriage. By the way, the Muhammad, he married a 6-year-old girl. The pinnacle of their religion, the prophet of their religion, Muhammad, he married a 6-year-old girl. So I don't think that she can talk about pedophilia and how it's not a problem in Somalia, or sexual assault or rape or anything like that. I don't think that she can say that, Somalia doesn't have that problem. No, it's far worse in places like Somalia. Okay. Maybe not to you, because culturally, they don't recognize rape or sexual assault or pedophilia as bad things. We do here in America. There's crime. You will be sentenced and convicted if you commit this, and if there's evidence against you, which brings me to Trump being a pedophile protector. As she said, she's repeatedly called Trump a pedophile because of his acquaintance, Jeffrey Epstein. Now, like I said, there's some weird things in those Epstein files. There's like satanic worship. There was an account that they called Baal that they contributed to. There's some really weird things where they were drinking like baby blood, and there was emails back and forth about this. So here's what I think about the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. I think that there was a faction of it that was sort of above bar, meaning Jeffrey Epstein was probably, at this point, I mean, I don't think that a lot of people refute this, and I don't know if this will ever be proven. He was probably trying to get dirt on people here in the United States, our congressmen, for the Israeli government. So that way, our congressmen and women would allocate funding, taxpayer dollars, to the Israeli government for them to blow up, Iranians and Islamists, because there's a big old family feud that stretches all the way back to Genesis, to the beginning, where, Abraham, Hagar, Sarah, you've got Ishmael and Isaac. So there is a deep hatred that goes back years. Okay. The beginning of time, practically. Okay. There's a deep hatred amidst Jewish people and Islam people. Okay. There's a deep hatred. And Jeffrey Epstein, a spy for the Israeli government, trying to get dirt on our congressmen, trying to get dirt on our Hollywood elite, in exchange for, money to be funneled over to Israel. I believe that. I think that that's a very real possibility, especially when you start reading the emails and how what do they call them? Gomans or something like that. They're very anti anybody who's not Jewish, okay, in these emails. So anyway, Jeffrey Epstein, he, had these parties, and I think that a good part of this was all above bar. Not something I would partake in. Obviously, these parties with hot women, drugs, but, things that, aren't illegal. Okay, these are crazy cool parties, and everybody wanted to be a part of them. There's people named in this sort of above bar faction of the Epstein Island, where they would go to the parties. Okay. Now I think that there's this really weird subsection almost of Jeffrey Epstein's Island where you had devil worshippers, people who hate Jesus Christ, hate children, were drinking the blood of children or talking about it, at least fantasizing about sacrificing children to Baal, which is a pagan type deity. Very weird. And these are the people who got super cozy with Jeffrey Epstein. And, there were the people he got dirt on who came to the parties. He slipped in a 16, 17-year-old girl, had blackmail on them. But then there's this really weird faction. Now, Donald Trump is named in the Epstein files, much like everybody who was, going to these above bar parties. But there's no evidence that Donald Trump even went to these parties with the hot women, and everything was like above bar. There's no evidence that he even went to Epstein's Island. Okay. None of that has come out in the 3 million pages of the Epstein files. Okay. There have been no credible instances of wrongdoing by the president. I'm just going to be clear about this. Okay. In fact, he's named in these files, and he's starting to look better and better with new information. Like I said, some of these tips. Donald Trump at this golf course had young women. The golf course didn't even exist, and people would bring in tips 2020 after Jeffrey Epstein was killed in his cell. People would bring in these tips when he was running for 2020. Obviously, and the golf course didn't even exist. They accused him of having women at this golf course, young women at this golf course, and raping them. A silly tip investigated by the FBI very quickly. They were like, okay, this tip doesn't make any sense because the golf course wasn't even around in 1995. Anyway, so there's that kind of stuff in the Epstein files, just fake tips about the president. But then you also have him named in the files as a good guy, okay, as a then private citizen in July 2006. Get this. He was one of the first people to call the police to warn about the sexual predator. So 2006 is right before any kind of charges came down. I think it was 2007. This is what Trump said, and documents show this. He says, "Thank goodness you're stopping him." And documents previously unreported. This was a 2019 FBI interview summary with former Palm Beach police chief Michael Ryder. Donald Trump had contacted the department shortly after reports of Epstein's criminal investigation became public, and Donald Trump contacted the Palm Beach police chief and expressed relief that the authorities were finally acting, suggesting his associates in New York had described Epstein's behaviors as disgusting and advised investigators to look into Ghislaine Maxwell as well, whom he described as evil. Okay, whom Trump described as evil. So documents show, there was a FBI interview summary done in 2019, but this conversation happened between the Palm Beach chief of police and Donald Trump back in 2006, right when they were going after Jeffrey Epstein. And in that conversation, Trump said that, his New York associates had described Epstein's behaviors as gross and disgusting. And he said, you should go in and look at Ghislaine Maxwell as well. She's an evil person. Okay. So we've seen the violent rhetoric turned up against President Donald Trump, against ICE agents. Violent rhetoric from Governor Tim Walz, Gavin Newsom, Governor J.B. Pritzker, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and we've seen violent rhetoric in the past, but Ilhan Omar's comments here about the president being executed for being a pedophile, like this is a whole new level of like advocating for a president's assassination, I think. I mean, the way I read it on X, it's like she's advocating for the president's assassination. Fox News digital columnist Dave Marcus said this on X. He said, just a congresswoman calling for the execution of a president, president of the United States. Yeah, that's insane. Think about that for a second. You have a sitting congressman who's calling for the execution of the sitting president of the United States that we elected. Okay, not only is this woman extreme, and she's making not very veiled threats against our commander-in-chief, but she's also been scrutinized for her financial issues, okay, her sudden wealth. She is representing the state that has been engulfed in this scandal, this $9 billion plus fraud epidemic. Okay, so she's a representative there. James Comer said on X, I'm demanding financial information from companies linked to Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar's husband. His companies reportedly went from making $51,000 a year to $30 million a year with zero investor information. We want to know who's funding this. How did his companies go from $51,000 to $30 million in worth? Who's bankrolling these companies that aren't even real, like the winery, Ilhan Omar's winery, where you go there and like nothing's there. Ilhan Omar's husband's winery. Here's what Comer said. He said, who's funding this and who's buying access? Ilhan, always been a flamethrower, always been a radical extremist, and to an extent can appreciate it. Like, yeah, go out there and be convicted. At least she's convicted. But this is very disturbing. This is beyond radical extremist behavior. This is like treasonous, calling for the assassination or execution of a sitting president. That means that you like you can't be trusted as a congressman. Okay, if you're calling for the execution of our president, and this is exactly an example of what we don't need in this country right now. Okay, hopefully her political days are numbered as the Somali fraud is exposed. There were a couple of Somali immigrants that were convicted of the Somali fraud that have connections to Ilhan Omar, in that they, threw campaign parties for her. I'd imagine her political days are numbered after these investigations into her conduct, her husband's companies ramp up. If those investigations ever ramp up, I'd imagine her political days are numbered. But calling for the assassination of the president, that is new and next level. Or calling for the execution. The X post is pretty clear that she's calling for the execution of the president and calling him a pedophile. Look, folks, I get so mad when people are like, he's a rapist, he's a pedophile. If you were to say that back in the 1800s, you'd be challenged to a duel and you'd die, man. Okay, you can't assassinate somebody's character when there was no evidence, no credible evidence at all. In fact, everything points to the opposite, that Donald Trump actually, and I don't doubt that he was in this sphere of Hollywood elite and he knew exactly what was going on at Jeffrey Epstein's parties, if not attended one or two of them. And like I said, I think that in order to sucker them in, Jeffrey Epstein was a nobody. Okay, but one thing that he had was charisma. Okay, everybody said that he just sucked all the oxygen out of the room. People wanted to be near him. Women wanted to be near him. And he was actually kicked out of Mar-a-Lago because he was trying to recruit some of Trump's pool girls or like golf caddies at Mar-a-Lago. And he was like, I think Donald Trump knows that, hey, this guy is, having these women, and a lot of these women probably consented to going to Jeffrey Epstein's island. They get paid, they get to live on this island. People chose that lifestyle. I'm not saying that there wasn't human trafficking and non-consensual things going on. But I think that in order to sucker people in and get the dirt on them, he had to appear sort of above bar, legitimate, legal. Now, I'm not saying even the parties themselves, like the consensual part of it, these like parties that were happening at Epstein's Islands that didn't include underage girls, but older girls. And you can see in the videos and the pictures, there's plenty of adult women. Okay. Not 13-year-old girls, but, adult women. I'm not advocating for that either. I think that's nasty, gross. Jeffrey Epstein, terrible guy. But I wouldn't doubt that, like, even Trump went to a party. I don't know. There hasn't been any videos of him or pictures of him. Definitely not like Bill Clinton, where he's like hanging out in a hot tub with Jeffrey Epstein and all these, women who have been redacted, which tells me that they were victims. So they were complaining that it was non-consensual complainants, or they're underage, their faces are redacted. I don't know. But like, there's none of that when it comes to the Epstein files. Like, we've got that on Bill Clinton, but there's nothing like that coming out of the Epstein files, where Donald Trump is pictured at the island with Jeffrey Epstein with women. Okay, so I don't know why people are like, Trump's a pedophile. Wait a second. What about Bill? Like, we've actually got evidence here. If anything, all the evidence is starting to look more and more like Trump knew what was going on. And he was kind of like a rat or a mole, where he was like ratting people out. And like I said, he kicked people, or Jeffrey Epstein, out of Mar-a-Lago because Jeffrey Epstein tried to recruit some of his employees at Mar-a-Lago. And yeah, I'm not saying that there's not this really weird faction either. There's this, like, when you're reading through the 3 million pages and some of these emails, nasty. So I think that there's some really weird people that got really close to Jeffrey Epstein. And yeah, they were really weird. So I think there's a little bit of both there. And Donald Trump's right when he says, like, there's nothing we can do when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. Court documents have been sealed by national intelligence agencies, not under the Trump administration, but there's court documents that are sealed due to national security issues. I think that's the client list. Thomas Massie has been calling for the client list. You're not going to get it, man. It's sealed up. And what if you reopened the investigation, the FBI investigation, you're going to find that, some congressmen might have, and they should see justice. 16, 17-year-olds were slipped in. And this is the sort of above bar faction of what was going on at the Epstein Island. And they should definitely, but those are the small fish, right? I mean, 16, 17 years old, they got slipped in, they got the dirt. Jeffrey Epstein got the dirt, brought that dirt back to the Israeli government, right? But at this point, the statute of limitations is up on that. That's why Donald Trump comes out and says things like, we need to move on, because he's talking about this stuff. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Donald Trump knew about the weird stuff like child sacrifice and the people that got so close to Jeffrey Epstein, where they were revealing their deepest, darkest fantasies about children and sucking their blood and their satanic rituals. I don't think a lot of people knew about that stuff. I did. You did. The conspiracy theorists did. I imagined that was going on. But I didn't know it was that bad. And the conspiracy theorists, what do you guys think? We need an apology. Pizzagate, like, that's more and more, like, we're starting to see like pizza all over the Epstein files and emails, and they're referring to pizza. Like, we were called conspiracy whack jobs for talking about Pizzagate. Conspiracy theorists really need an apology. But I do think that Donald Trump was privy to understanding like how weird these parties could get. And I think he was in this sphere of Hollywood elite, and he was sort of like a mole. More and more, it's starting to look like Jeffrey Epstein didn't like President Donald Trump because President Donald Trump was skeptical and was like, you're slipping 16, 17-year-olds in here. Like, it was cool with the parties with the hot women. That was awesome. But you're slipping 16, 17-year-olds in here. That's weird. You're trying to recruit my employees and get them to leave to go to this island. That's weird. So more and more, it's starting to look like Donald Trump was the hero in all of this, and probably this investigation wouldn't have happened had not President Donald Trump said like, hey, look into Ghislaine Maxwell as well. She's evil. That's what he told the Palm Beach police chief back in 2006. I mean, I don't know, folks. Claiming Trump's the pedophile here. I'm not seeing it. All right. Let's talk about this investigation. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Pima County Sheriff's Office, they have detained a person in connection with this kidnapping. And now, like I said, I don't know if she's been actually kidnapped. And former FBI officials, have come out and said that it's looking less and less like a kidnapping. And when I first heard this story, I know the statistics. Ransom, when ransom is involved, usually it's a family member. Now, Nancy Gutherie, she's 84 years old, and she's the mother of Today co-host Savannah Guthrie. I don't know these people. I don't know them. I watch alternative news. I don't watch mainstream media news. This has been dominating the news cycle for several weeks. And anytime anything dominates the news cycle, and I'm like, were these people actually that popular? I mean, Rob Reiner sort of more popular than these two, I think. And he was, killed by his son, his throat slit. Very odd. And that didn't dominate the news cycle at all. And then you have this story, she's kidnapped, and it's been dominating the news cycle for several weeks, the mainstream media. And to be honest with you, I didn't even really know what was happening until late, like last week, maybe, because I don't know these people and I don't watch mainstream. So yesterday, Tuesday, early in the day, the FBI, their elite hostage rescue team was deployed on the ground in Tucson, Arizona. They, with several SWAT teams from multiple counties, they were on the ground, and this was following the FBI's release of images and videos of a masked individual in front of Guthrie's door that they obtained. So they recovered this video and images from a Nest camera. So at first they couldn't get this. I don't know if it was like a private sector company thing or what, but apparently they got it eventually. Like the FBI got the camera, the Ring Nest camera. It's like a Ring doorbell camera. Apparently they managed to get this this footage, these images, and then the FBI put them out like that earlier that day or earlier yesterday. And then you had the SWAT teams on the ground with the FBI's elite hostage team. Okay, so take a look. This is part of the images they released. Okay, this guy walks up. They had way more. I'm just going to show you, like, this is, essentially what we've got going on here with who, approached the door armed. I think that's a holster there in the front. The Pima County Sheriff's Department, with the assistance from the FBI, detained an individual now for questioning. Okay, and this kind of happened Tuesday night into early this morning. and this individual has been detained and already released. Okay, so they detained this individual for questioning, and they thought he's connected to this abduction of Nancy Guthrie. Okay, so that's according to ABC News. The individual was detained in a location south of Tucson. Rio, it's very close to the Mexican border. Law enforcement is searching and has searched at this point individuals' homes that are connected with this individual. His name is Carlos. So they searched his girlfriend's home and his mother-in-law's home, I believe. And the images, here that I'm sharing with you on the screen, this is of somebody wearing a mask, gloves, backpack, holstered handgun. And this individual is at the front door of Nancy Guthrie's Tucson area home. Okay. This guy was found, very close to Tucson, right by the Mexican border. They think Nancy Guthrie was abducted on February 1st. Okay. So this is what we know now. Okay. So let me get to Carlos here in just a second, but here's what Kash Patel said in a recent post on social media. Law enforcement has uncovered previously inaccessible images. So this image that I'm showing you right now was not accessible. He says, showing an armed individual appearing to have tampered with the camera at Nancy Guthrie's front door the morning of her disappearance. So he tampered with it. They weren't able to get it, but somehow they obtained it through like the back end. Data recovery. They worked with the private sector, so Nest, to try to get this video and new images of the guy with the gun at the front door, who's probably the person who kidnapped Nancy. Now we do have the name of this individual. Like I said, the guy that was detained for questioning, he's been released. His name is Carlos. From what I understand, he is not a suspect. He is a person of interest right now, and he claims that he is innocent. Carlos Alberto Pazulas Jr. is his name, and he is a person of interest in the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping investigation. He's a FedEx driver and a FedEx worker and DoorDash driver. Now, he was pulled over in Rio Riso, Arizona, which is very close to the Mexican border, very close to Tucson as well. Authorities say he's connected to the investigation because his Bitcoin wallet address is listed in the ransom note. That's a pretty deep connection. Okay, that's what I'm hearing on the ground here from sources on X. That's why he was pulled into questioning, because his Bitcoin wallet address was in the ransom note. Okay, so to my knowledge, he has not yet been directly tied to the actual kidnapping. So just because his Bitcoin wallet address was in the note doesn't mean he was the one outside of her door. This guy, and I'm going to be honest with you, doesn't really look like Carlos. I don't know, it's kind of hard because he's slouching, thin individual. Carlos looks a little bit thicker than that. That's just my take. I don't think it really looks like Carlos, like as far as height and width goes. You can't really tell. The guy's masked, right? But as far as I know, he's not been tied to any of the kidnapping. Okay. It's just that his Bitcoin wallet was in the ransom note. So authorities have searched at this point his girlfriend's house and his mother's house, mother-in-law's home. Okay. So updates on this case are moving very, very quickly. Okay. Because as of this morning, like that's what they were doing. And like, he's been released already, right before I popped onto the show, like he was released. So, it's possible he was acting as like a middleman for the kidnappers, handling the cryptocurrency, or he could have profited from the situation. His financial situation looks glum. He's a DoorDasher. He was out DoorDashing in the middle of the night, obviously with his kids. I find it odd if he was going to gain from this financially, this kidnapping, and if he was part of the ransom. I find it odd that he was out door dashing. But which, hey, he's not a suspect, he's a person of interest. Now, this is where it gets fascinating. His dad, same name, not this guy. There's been reports that this guy is a sexual predator. Not true. His dad, who has the same name as him, he's a junior, was convicted in Santa Cruz in 2005 in connection to sexual assault of his stepdaughter, 11 years old. So, yeah, the search warrant for his girlfriend's house, his mother-in-law's home, they obtained multiple electronic devices. They were seized. So there's no confirmation either on his immigration status. Okay, this is Riso Rio. This is like illegal immigrant territory. This is right outside of the Mexico border. I'm sure CNN is petrified that this guy's going to wind up being the suspect or had something to do with the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping. They're petrified because they don't want to tell the American people that an illegal immigrant actually, partook in the kidnapping. I'm sure they're petrified and they're worried that they're going to have to report that. Like I said, his illegal immigration status, I don't know if he's an illegal immigrant or not yet. It's all very developing and changing fast. Okay. And the guy is maintaining his innocence. And we'll get to clips like that here in a second. But listen to CNN. Tell me that they don't sound petrified here, that this guy is possibly an illegal alien who kidnapped Nancy Guthrie. They're freaked out. They don't want to report that. Take a listen.
Back with our breaking news, a person has been detained for questioning in the disappearance of Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy. A source is now telling us that this person was detained in Rio Rico. You see there on the map, it is near the border with Mexico. It's about an hour south of Tucson. Let's go back to Jake and Ed Lavandera. Ed, you're familiar with this area. What can you tell us?
Well, it's just north of Nogales, which is, obviously one of the border areas crossing into Mexico. We've been, over the years, done a lot of reporting through the area. Very remote. You start getting down into this part of Arizona. It starts becoming very remote. It's also a place where Nogales sits literally right on the border. The border wall goes right through town, so you can literally take one step if that wall wasn't there and cross into Mexico. So at that point, it's Interstate 19, which takes you south from Tucson all the way into Nogales, which is about 60 miles. Obviously, the border infrastructure and all of the law enforcement presence that is down in this part of the world has changed dramatically in the last few years. So it's a very difficult a place where you're not going to drive very far without running into some sort of law enforcement vehicle down there.
Right. So Rio Rico is 51 miles south of Tucson, and again, my map here. If this is Arizona, for those of people who are not familiar with Arizona, it's a kind of a rectangle, and Phoenix is about here, and you're showing it on there. Great. And Tucson is the biggest southern city. And it's 60 miles from the Mexican border and 51 miles from Tucson, 9 miles from the border is Rio Rico. And this area, tell us, Ed, because you've covered this mainly for immigration stories, right, but you've covered this area for years and years and years. Small towns, but fairly desolate, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, when we started hearing news of this, I was calling around to...
So he's in a desolate area. That's also fascinating to me. But if this ends up being what they fear it is, I bet it's going to get a lot worse for illegals here in America. You thought the deportations were bad. Now, this has been dominating the news cycle for 2 weeks. Nancy Guthrie, she's 84 years old. People are going to be calling for illegals to be deported en masse, like you've never seen before. If it checks out that this guy has a questionable immigration status, even if it's a questionable immigration status. But Nancy Guthrie, If she's found alive, and I'm praying that she is, I'm praying that she's reunited with her family. Like I said, I'm statistically speaking, these kind of things, it's family members who kind of are all in on it, and they try to get ransom from other family members. That's just statistically what this could be. Former FBI officials have said, like, it's looking more and more like it's not a kidnapping. And I'll get to that here in just a second. But if she's alive and she was not taken into Mexico, I think the Guthrie family has Trump to thank for the border wall and the border security and infrastructure, because it's not easy to move back and forth across that border without running into law enforcement anymore. And I suspect that Democrats are going to stop talking about this story if this guy's named as a suspect. Right now, person of interest, he's maintaining his innocence. He said he's innocent. Take a listen to this. Here we go. This was after he was released. So he was detained, questioned. This was after he was released. Here we go.
When they finally told you this had to do with some kidnapping, what were you thinking?
What the fuck am I doing here? I didn't do anything. To be honest, like, I'm innocent.
When they finally told you this had.
Okay, so there's that one, and I want to share with you.
I hope they get the suspect, because I'm not it. They better do their job and find the suspect that did it, so they can clear my name, and I'm done. Look at what I'm putting my family through.
You're on national news now.
Not just them. Even my parents in Tucson.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I hope they get the suspect.
So his mother-in-law and his girlfriend, that's what he's talking about. They're putting my family through this. Look, your Bitcoin wallet address was on the ransom note. That's plenty for the FBI officials to come in and, start conducting search warrants. Like, this is a high-profile case. But former FBI top officials are doubting whether Nancy Guthrie's disappearance was actually a kidnapping. This is an interview with the mother-in-law I do want to get to. But first, this was like shortly after he was detained. Okay, this was an interview by ABC shortly after he was or before he was detained. Let me take a listen. Here we go.
So how did this all start? How did they stop you here? You were driving here?
Yeah,
or
my wife was driving.
Your wife was driving?
Because they were following me.
Yeah, shortly after he was detained and released, he did an interview with ABC. And he talks about the traffic stop where they detained him. He was out doing door dashing, according to his mother-in-law. But take a listen. Here we go.
Once I saw they were following me, I pulled over. They didn't even have to put a traffic stop or anything. I got off the car, and they arrested me as soon as I got out the car. They didn't even tell me what was going on until the detectives got here, like 2 hours before I got arrested. And then the detectives got here. It was the FBI agent in Santa Cruz County, and they told me I was being detained for kidnapping. And I asked them, like, well, kidnapping of who? And they told me this lady, I don't know her name. And
Nancy Gutherie?
Yeah, that's her. And I told him I work in Tucson for GLS. I might have delivered a package to your house, but I never kidnapped anybody. They hold me from like 4 to right now.
Okay, so there's that. They held her or held him for a long period of time and questioned him. Okay, but they released him, so he's not a suspect, person of interest. This is what Carlos's mother-in-law had to say with reporters. Take a listen.
The house that is now being searched where this subject lived, we're told. There was a traffic stop close by. This is the subject being questioned in the Nancy Guthrie investigation. This is Josephina. Yes. This is her house, and the subject is her son-in-law.
Yeah,
is that right?
Son, yeah.
Tell me how this happened. Where was he when he was detained?
My daughter and him and the kids, my grandkids, were doing door dashing when they got stopped here, and I don't know what kind of questions they asked them. But when we got home, I wasn't at home. When we got home, we found out that they took my son out. They went inside, they busted the doors from my house. They went inside and took my son to the living room and had him handcuffed, and then got him outside. That's when the time that we got home, and we asked what was going on, and they couldn't say anything. And they said, and I asked him to have a search warrant to go in my house. And they said, we don't need a search warrant. We could go do that if we want to. So I told them, yeah, I think you need a search warrant. Why did you break my door? You took my son the wrong way. I mean, you hurt him. His wrists were with a put the handcuffs.
Let me ask you, were you familiar with the Nancy Guthrie
No.
case? Had you seen that she was missing?
Like I told you, I saw it on Facebook, but since I don't know her, I didn't read what was going on. The story.
Did they take electronic devices at all? Did they take your phone?
I don't have anything. They took
your
my phone. They took my phone, my husband's phone, my daughter's phone, my grandkids' phone, and my son-in-law's phone.
Let me show you these pictures really quick, Josefina, of, just give me a second, I gotta pull them up on my phone. These are the pictures from outside Nancy Guthrie's house. This is who they're looking for. Do the eyes look like your son-in-law at all?
No, not at all.
Do you see the mouth?
Yeah, no. He doesn't look at all.
Brian, can you ask what her son-in-law's
what's
name
his
is?
name?
It's Carlos. Carlos Palazuelos.
Sorry, what's his name?
Carlos.
Carlos.
Yes.
And what's his last name?
Palazuelos.
Okay.
I don't know, yeah. So.
And does he work in Tucson? Would he ever be in Tucson?
He's in Tucson all week. He works delivering boxes for like UPS and he works with a company. And I told him you can call the company that he works there and verify that he's working. And
is your daughter also detained?
No, they just let my daughter and my grandkids go.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Josefina.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the latest here, Jesse. They took her phone too, her husband's phone, and her daughter's phone, and obviously her son-in-law's phone, and they are searching her house right now. So this is sort of an unfolding situation.
And I'll get into this with Arthur, the fact that they didn't have a search warrant, according to her. Do you know where Carlos is right now, Brian?
Do we know where Carlos is right now?
No, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with him. They took my phone. I can't reach with nobody.
Yeah, we think he's being questioned. But...
Yeah, they already asked us a lot of questions about him. We told, like I said, I have nothing to hide. You can go in my house. You can search anything you want. There's nothing to hide. I don't know the lady. I don't know about the lady. I saw her on Facebook, but like I told you.
Was he ever violent? Any violence with Carlos?
No, he's a good guy.
Criminal history that you know of?
None of it.
No? Okay.
Is he from Tucson?
Brian,
yeah, so I mean, that's sort of the situation. She's obviously in shock. Yeah.
Did you show her photos of the person outside of Nancy Guthrie's house? The images, the mask, the backpack? Did she identify any of those items of clothing? And nothing. She doesn't see anything in that.
I did.
Okay. So, interesting. It's an interesting story. He's a person of interest. Like I said, the Bitcoin is being reported that the Bitcoin wallet address was in the ransom note. His Bitcoin wallet address was in the ransom note. Why would that be there? I'm sure that was plenty to obtain a search warrant. And I haven't seen anything. According to her, there was no search warrant, but I haven't seen anything to indicate that there wasn't that wasn't a proper search. Okay. Cash Patel put this out on X. He says, new images in the search for Nancy Guthrie. Now, I find this kind of fascinating. They couldn't obtain them, and then all of a sudden they recovered all of these images, and it's keeping the story alive in the mainstream. I don't know if it's a psyop. I don't know if it's fake news. I don't know if this is all just something that the family or a family member is doing in order to get some money. That's and it's not just me who's saying that. Former FBI officials are saying that, hey, this is looking more and more like it's not a kidnapping. But new images in the search over the last 8 days, the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department have been working closely with our private sector partners to continue to recover images and video footage from Nancy Guthrie's home that may have been lost, corrupted, or inaccessible due to a variety of factors, including the removal of recording devices. So they say that the guy in the video had tampered with the camera. The video was recovered from residual data located in back-end systems. So working with our partners, as of this morning, law enforcement has uncovered previously inaccessible new images showing an armed individual appearing to have tampered with the camera outside of Nancy Guthrie's front door the morning of her disappearance. So... yeah, we've got all this footage now. We've got a person of interest. He's been released. He was questioned for quite some time, pretty much throughout the whole night. Interesting that they didn't know about the case. But like I said, Nancy Guthrie, Savannah Guthrie, this has really dominated the news. Millions, as somebody pointed out, of people go missing every single day. This has dominated the news, obviously, because of Savannah Guthrie's status here. She's a co-host on Today. But I don't know why it's dominated. Like, now that the FBI has this footage, like it's staying in the news cycle. So I hope she's alive. 84 years old. Like, nobody should be kidnapped and harmed or die. There was blood at the scene. I'd be surprised. I'm kind of surprised that they haven't found anybody. I mean, they've got this loose person who's kind of loosely connected to this case, and they've already released him. So, yeah, I hope that and pray that she's delivered back to her family and she's alive. Okay, and that's a little bit about the updates there. Nancy Guthrie's case. I haven't covered it. It's been dominating the news cycle. Anytime anything dominates the news cycle, I'm always like skeptical. Is this a psyop? What are they distracting us from? But I hope she's found, and I hope that she's okay. All right, friends, grab your coffee. I've got one more story. Grab your pet cat, stroke your little kitty, your coffee, and buckle up, because I've got something coming out of Illinois today. Democrats are at it again. And this is one is a masterclass in government contradiction. This story. Today we are talking about House Bill 4554. Sounds boring. It amends the Finance Act. Yada, yada, yada. But you peel back the layers of this, and then you're going to find out, oh, shoot. The state of Illinois, they are deciding which viewpoints get taxpayer money and which ones don't, which viewpoints get erased, and which viewpoints get taxpayer funding. So, spoiler alert, if you don't chant from the approved leftist ideological hymnal, you're not getting funded. Okay, so here's the rundown. House Bill 4554, it would prohibit taxpayer funding for conversion therapy in Illinois. It would void any kind of state contracts that's connected to conversion therapy right now, declaring them against public policy. I don't think that we're funding conversion therapy as of right now. Why? Because it's illegal. Conversion therapy has been illegal for years. Since 2016, that's 10 years, folks. It's been illegal. So naturally, the first question is, okay, conversion therapy is illegal. Why are we banning taxpayer funds to funds from being allocated to an illegal practice? Of course, we're not funding that because it's not happening, because it should be illegal, right? Why are they banning funding for something that's already illegal? Well, State Representative Bill Hunter in the Center Square was asking this question, and his confusion is completely justified. The bill doesn't just stop a practice from happening. We already did that back in 2016 to conversion therapy. It doesn't protect kids from something that's legal, say like cannabis. It doesn't regulate something that's legal. Conversion therapy is illegal. So what is this exactly? Well, it's a political message. It's a message that says, hey, we only fund one type of worldview in this state, and one type of worldview gets state approval and state money. So Illinois lawmakers are rushing to ban this symbolically, really. It's a symbolical ban on funding for conversion therapy, because conversion therapy isn't happening because it's illegal in this state. Okay, so the state is pouring simultaneously tons of money into gender-affirming initiatives. Okay, so case in point, Illinois Pride Connect. I'm sure you've heard of this. This is in 2025. They actually launched this thing. $250,000 it received for its launch, its initial launch. It's a statewide hotline. What the hotline does, you can call as an LGBTQer and get referrals and references for so-called gender-affirming care. It's a resource for LGBTQ individuals, including minors, specifically as it relates to healthcare access and gender-affirming care. hey, how can I transition myself and lop my healthy breast off as a 12-year-old? And I can call this hotline and they'll tell me how to do it. Okay, so counseling that encourages kids to wait and say, hey, you know, Tammy, you're just a little bit tomboyish, right? Any kind of counseling that encourages kids to wait, nope, you're not getting funding. In fact, that is banned. If your preacher sits down with you and says, oh, you know, you are Timmy, you are just a sensitive boy who likes the color pink. That does not mean you're a girl. That's defunded. It's banned. Therapy that explores alternatives to gender affirming care, unacceptable. Guidance, given that aligns with your biological sex. Hey, I think that God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And I think that you're just confused right now, and your biological sex is your sex. If you were to tell a child that, you are banned from receiving any kind of public support. And that's just banned. It's conversion therapy in their eyes. Okay. So counseling that affirms a child's gender transition or affirms the opposite sex from their biological sex, that is fully funded, that is protected. And in this bill, it's explicitly carved out. So it's kind of funny. They say we can't fund conversion therapy, but we are still funding, just to be clear, gender affirming care, because that's not conversion therapy. That's actually just called gender affirming care. Okay. So, folks, that's not neutrality. This is not science-based policymaking. Representative Howder didn't mince words in the Center Square article. He says that gender transitioning children is the ultimate conversion therapy. Yeah, I would argue that saying to little Tammy that she's a tomboy and that she's not a boy, but that she just likes baseball hats and scooters, that doesn't make you a boy. I would say that that's not conversion therapy. That's just telling kids reality. I'll tell you what sounds more like conversion therapy: lopping off Tammy's breasts, healthy breasts, irreversible, and putting her on puberty blockers that are irreversible. So the left insists that conversion therapy is harmful because it attempts to change how someone identifies. Okay, so they insist that conversion therapy is terrible because it doesn't affirm what children believe to be true about themselves. But the medical transition, if not the most extreme identity conversion imaginable, okay? I think that that's what is medical gender transition, if not the most extreme identity conversion imaginable, okay? The puberty blockers, the cross-sex hormones, the irreversible surgeries, okay, these are not just influencing children on how they think, like conversion, so-called conversion therapy does. You just kind of influence children to think, hey, I'm in the perfect body. I was created as a girl. I was created as a man, because God made me that way, and I need to stick with my biological sex. That's just all thoughts and therapy. And what they're doing with the puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones, this is permanently altering bodies and actually converting children into something that's irreversible and medically different from what they used to be. Okay. So Illinois says gender affirming care is worth taxpayer funding, while therapy, just talking and encouraging patients, and treating them, like people and not experiments, that is a moral crime and needs to be banned and should not receive any kind of funding. Okay. But, I don't know what exactly is going on here, because conversion therapy is banned. So it still doesn't make sense as to why they're banning funding for a banned practice. Now, one of the biggest lies that's pushed out there by these leftist activists, these LGBTQ activists, is that the science is settled. It's actually not. when it comes to gender affirming care, this is a highly, highly debated issue still. Okay, so allocating taxpayer dollars to something that's still being debated is just ignorant and stupid and a little preemptive, right? So Howder, who is a physician, he says that the medical community itself is divided on this issue. So the American Medical Association, the American Society for Plastic Surgeons, they have begun urging caution when it comes to irreversible interventions for minors. European countries have said, no, we're slamming the brakes on this gender affirming care stuff for kids. Long-term studies, we don't have any detransitioners. They're becoming increasingly more vocal. So why is Illinois acting like there's only one acceptable answer when that answer, gender affirming care, is highly debated, and they only want to fund that answer? The debate is not settled, and the government should not be funding and picking winners before the debate is settled. Okay. Now HB 45 or 4554 prohibits funding conversion therapy, but it explicitly protects funding for gender affirming care. And that is a tell. Okay. They are truly about keeping the state. If they really wanted to keep the state out of ideological counseling, they should ban funding for all of it. I don't want taxpayer dollars going towards conversion therapy. I don't want taxpayer dollars going towards gender affirming care. And if the state was truly neutral with your tax dollars, they would ban funding for all viewpoint driven therapy. But they didn't. They specifically carved out one side and they insulated the other from funding. And that is called viewpoint discrimination, folks. Okay, plain and simple. And this is truly why I think that the bill has been introduced. It is a legal backup plan. So the U.S. Supreme Court is currently reviewing a case out of Colorado that challenges conversion therapy bans. Like I said, it's been banned here in the state of Illinois for 10 years, conversion therapy. Now the Supreme Court is taking a look at this, and they're saying, that kind of violates free speech, kind of violates religious liberty. People should be able to sit and talk with kids about how, they might not be a boy if they're a girl, or they might not be a girl if they're a boy. Okay. And if the Supreme Court rules a certain way and those bans are deemed unconstitutional and are deemed like, hey, that violates people's free speech and freedom of liberty, religious liberty, if those bans fall, Illinois is going to have like some sort of backup plan. They're going to have to say like, okay, fine, you can practice conversion therapy because the Supreme Court ruling, but we're just not going to fund it. So they're kind of maybe being preemptive here, but this is still discriminatory, right? If the Supreme Court rules that, hey, conversion therapy is not illegal, and in fact, banning it is unconstitutional, you're still discriminatorily funding gender affirming care over something that's been deemed a legal practice, conversion therapy, and you're being discriminatory with what you decide to fund. And let me be crystal clear. This bill is not about protecting kids. It's not about fiscal responsibility. This is not even really about stopping conversion therapy. This is about enforcing orthodoxy. Illinois taxpayers are being forced to bankroll one belief, okay, while the other is being erased, not because it's illegal. Possibly the Supreme Court is going to deem bans on conversion therapy illegal, which would make conversion therapy legal. But it's politically convenient for them to erase this version of therapy, and they want to force taxpayers here in the state of Illinois to bankroll a certain ideology over another one. That's what this is about. This is about forcing taxpayers into this religion of gender affirming care. And government should not be a therapist. They should not be your preacher. They should not be in the business of conversion therapy or gender affirming care. That's my opinion. Okay. Government should not be your child's identity coach. If lawmakers actually believed in diversity, they would tolerate more than one viewpoint. Okay. If they truly wanted to be neutral, they would not fund either. Okay. Because I don't think that's what the government is in the business of doing. But if they wanted to be diverse and tolerant of all viewpoints, they should fund, conversion therapy and gender affirming care. I'd like to see them fund zero, because that's your decision. What kind of therapy you're going to put your kid in. And I mean, if you love your child and don't want to abuse your child, conversion therapy would be the way to go. Telling them, little Tammy, I think you as a parent have an obligation to tell your child the truth and to not mutilate their body. But let's be real, fund both and be neutral and be diverse and not have this viewpoint discrimination or fund none. I'd be okay with that. So that's today's conservative cat take. And hey, if you like your truth without propaganda, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. That's going to do it for us today. Until next time, stay skeptical. Don't let the state think for you. Stay curious. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Catch you later.